Alright guys, today we're going to talk about visual aids and how you can use visual aids to really complement your message, even in our online format. So we have that share screen function in Zoom that works really well, and you can share PowerPoints, Prezis, pictures, videos, anything you can really think of right in our online Zoom meetings, and your audience can see both you presenting and your visual aid at the same time. So the purpose of visual aids is to grab attention and to maintain focus while also helping your audience understand ideas, procedures, or events. So especially thinking about this procedure point here, we had some students use visual aids in Speech 2 already to help show the process in the procedure that they were presenting, right? So this is the same thing if you are a Pinterest user where you click on a link for a craft or a recipe maybe, and they show you pictures of each step working through the process, right? Or maybe you are putting together a shelf or something of that nature, and the instructions come with not only the written instruction but also a picture of what things are supposed to look like as you progress, right? So same kind of concept here with our own visual aids, helping us understand again those ideas, procedures, or events. So you're delivering information through two channels of communication, which helps your audience remember. And those two channels are your verbal communication, your auditory communication, and then you're also using that visual component here with visual aids. So you're kind of supplementing and putting together two learning styles when you use visual aids. And it assists in organizing your message, so it helps your audience follow along with you, and then it helps you as the speaker to remember where you are in your speech. A fancy word for this is visual rhetoric, and it's the use of images as an integrated element in the total communication effort a speaker makes to achieve the speaking goal. And guys, I really want you to latch on to this integrated element piece in that definition here. Integrated meaning you're not just showing a visual aid at the very beginning of a speech, at the very end, or maybe just popping in an extra visual in the middle. Typically, you really want to integrate and work that visual aid throughout the entire speech to complement the message as a whole and not just certain pieces of the message. We will talk about a little strategy for that coming up here shortly. So there's lots of types of visual aids. You can use objects, models, people, so things in 3D that you can just hold up on your screen. Totally cool. You can use drawings, photos, slides, graphs, charts, overhead transparencies. If you remember back to grade school when your math teacher would used to do problems and project them on the board. So all those things, both in the online setting and outside, be creative with the types of visual aids that you're using. I've even just had students write on a board, so if you have a whiteboard behind you and you can present that way, awesome. Whichever way is going to facilitate your message best for your audience. Presentation software, and that's like Prezi and PowerPoint, those kinds of things. Audio visual aids, again, maybe music or videos, but keeping them fairly short, especially with our shorter speech times here. So now I'm going to give you a couple examples of some cool visual aids that I've seen or heard about. So here is one, and it says movies are up to 2.35 times as wide as they are high, resulting in a panoramic frame. So this is what you would see in a movie theater, and then this is a very old TV, but however, most TVs are only 1.33 times as wide as they are high. So from a theater to a TV, you see this. So to accommodate this difference, many movies have the sides cut off, resulting in a loss of 46% of the visuals. Now this is a fairly old speech, so maybe new technology has come along to make this, or to eradicate this problem, but it's still a good visual aid, right? Going from this to this and seeing the difference. If someone were to just tell you that information, it would be really hard to picture in your head, right? But being able to couple what they are saying with a really cool visual makes the point all the more clear. Here's another example from the theater to our home TV screen, and here's another. Okay, one more here. You're missing all of the people in the screen. Kind of cool. Okay, here's another gross example, but another example. So one person was teaching us how to look for irregularities and check for skin cancer and those kinds of things. And that might be one that I fudge a little bit on, no more how-to type of speeches for speech number 3. But knowing here and seeing these things this is very hard to describe. These concepts are hard to describe and think about. So you're actually showing a malignant mole versus a benign mole. And then I've actually had this speech and people are like looking at their arms wondering if their freckles and moles look like these things. So it's very effective whether or not it's gross. Sometimes it's more effective because it is gross, but still making sure that it's appropriate. Here's another. So this says, Gay Black at 59 left with deep wrinkles and sagging skin. Her twin Gwyn spent less time in the sun and it shows. So this is age 21 when they look very similar, and then sun exposure, so just showing the difference. And again, you can tell people all the time to stay out of the sun, and then actually seeing these differences with someone that shares the same genetics and those kinds of things can be really effective. So be creative in how you are applying your visual aids to your message, and think about the ways that you can reach your audience most effectively and really hit home with them. This one is bordering on the edge of being appropriate in class, but it does really hit home and share a very serious message with the audience. So this is the ideal image and talking about body weight and those kinds of things. And I've had this coupled with Photoshop and that sort of message and how Photoshop works in the industry. So thinking outside the box again there with how you can apply certain topics, and the topics that you can find and inform us on, just things that we're unaware of, often work well for informative speeches. All right, this one is on child abuse. So you can talk all about child abuse, but actually seeing the abuse hits home again. So these are the ones that kind of border, and these are the ones that I want you to ask me questions on. If you're worried about if things are too much or inappropriate, please share with me first, and we'll talk about the best way to go about it. But again, visual aids can really help enhance your message. This one is a fun one to kind of change the tone of our lecture. Well, I don't know if it's fun, but it's just very odd. So some people, when they die, prefer to be left as something unique on Earth. And so people are often being cremated and turned into their favorite pastime. So this is a terrible picture, but this is a real application of that concept where someone would like to be a sandcastle. So they live on as a sandcastle, and their ashes were constructed as such. Very odd, very cool, very weird at the same time, right? This person wanted to be a coral reef. So now they're in an aquarium with the fish, which if you want to do that, all the more power to you, right? But this is something that not a lot of people know about, cool to learn about, cool to think about, very imperative to see, I think, for most. Here's another example of that same concept. They were compacted, crushed into a gem, a jewel for their loved one. So very cool, very odd, again, very weird. I keep saying that because I've done this lecture so many times and it still shocks me. But again, you have to really, really see it to understand. This one was talking about this speech was talking about our relevance or our impact in the universe at large. So showing our size compared to other planets and references in space. So here is the Earth compared to the smaller planets. Here is the Earth compared to the larger planets. Pluto is a little here. I know Pluto's not a planet anymore, but go along with this visual aid. Here is Earth here compared to the Sun. Earth is invisible at this scale. Juniper is about a pixel in size, moving on up with the suns. Here you can't even see Earth, and Jupiter is invisible, so we've always thought of Jupiter as this huge, huge planet, right? And it's invisible compared to these other things that we know are in space. And then looking at our galaxy and looking at our universe. So that was a really cool speech that you have to really see to get the proximity and the magnitude of Earth's existence in the universe. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about graphs. So we've talked about pictures and their significance. Now we'll talk about graphs and the ways you can present statistics. So bar graphs show comparison between two or more things, and you need to know that. Bar graphs show comparison between two or more things. So knowing that you're going to choose a bar graph if you have those kinds of statistics there. All right, pie graphs show percentages of a whole. Yes, we can see that here with this pie graph showing percentages of a whole. Line graphs indicate a trend. Notice, guys, what's the problem here with this line graph? We have minimum wage, but we don't know what kind of currency we have over here, so this line graph isn't necessarily complete. And it ends in 2000. So we are in 2018. Not necessarily still accurate or applicable to us, right? We don't know whose federal hourly minimum wage this is referencing. So keeping that kind of stuff in mind, you're checking yourself using these visual aids. And I also often encourage students, we are so good at technology and Excel and making our own graphs and visual aids now that you might spend more time searching for a visual aid than it would take you to actually make your own visual aid. So I challenge you, if you have these statistics and things that match either a bar graph, a pie graph, or a line graph, to just make your own and present it, and then you'll make sure you're covering all of your bases and it's really up-to-date information. All right, now shifting to talking about using presentation software effectively. So we see this a lot with PowerPoint. We really want to avoid using too much text on our slides. So I often use bullet points to keep people really on track and focused, and then I, as a speaker, I'm going to elaborate on that point and give you more context, more information regarding that bullet, but you are only going to see a couple words. Everyone can read what's on the screen. They're looking for you for more information. So the presentation aid, again, is just to keep people on track, keep them interested, keep them intrigued. Use a font that's really easy to read. So you don't want to give your audience any reason to be distracted from your message. You're just going to hit them in the face with these brief instances from your information, from your presentation, and you're going to make it as easily digestible as possible for them. So you're going to use contrasting background and font colors, so trying to avoid like a light blue on a medium blue background. You're going to want to use like white and navy blue or white and black, no yellows and reds, those kinds of things with fonts. So here's an example of seeing too much text. So if you want to read through this, you can. It's just me being silly. But your audience spends more time trying to read what's on the screen than actually listening to you, and making sure that your presentation aid is a complement to your message and not a copy of your message. You are complementing, not copying. Remember that as you are preparing your speech here. All right, continuing on here, so going back up to using fonts that are easy to read, pretty little fonts. This is all caps, making sure you're using that as a strategic complement, not just to use all caps. Avoiding ones that have kind of a slant or that are a little spooky, kind of too formal, those kinds of things. So you're going for stuff that is very easy to read for your audience, very common, Arial, Times New Roman, those kinds of things, okay? Using colors effectively, so this is kind of hard to read, they're inconsistent, so I'm always using black, red, and white, so really prominent colors, things that are easy to see, catch attention for the audience. All right, so you're making them easy to see. Again, you're keeping them simple and safe. So yes, you can border, really going for enhancing your message and making your message clear, heartfelt, all those kinds of things, but still keeping them safe and within the realm of what's acceptable in our classroom. You're going to rehearse with them and explain them to us, guys, and this is key. So rehearsing with them, you don't want to be distracted by your visual aid, and if you're presenting in person, you never want to have your back to the audience while you're presenting. You know what is behind you, let it be behind you, and keep your focus on your audience. We never want to have a visual aid, a picture, a video, something that we are left to interpret and think about ourselves. We want it to be explained to us verbally, really thoroughly, and explained in relation to the message. So never leave someone hanging with your visual aid. You want to make eye contact with us, not your presentation aid. We just talked about that. Avoid passing objects around or using animals if you're in a in-person setting. Just distractions, and you don't want things to get broken. Those kinds of situations happen as well. Time the use of your visual aid to control your audience's attention, so you can use blank slides when needed. And I kind of touched on this when I said you want to keep your visual aid integrated, so you want it to be from the beginning to the end. You never want to just throw something here or there. It needs to be a consistent element of your speech, right? But you can use blank slides if you really want the attention to be coming back to you as the speaker in that moment. So for instance, if what's behind you on your screen or what's on your Zoom share screen isn't super imperative to what you are saying right then, maybe you're transitioning, those kinds of things, you might throw up a blank slide just to divert attention back to you as the speaker and the speaker only. So you can use those strategically. You always want to make sure what is shown on your visual aid is complementing your message, not distracting from your message, and not irrelevant to your message. So thinking about all those things as you're putting together your presentation aids. So you must refer to your presentation aid during your speech and not at the end. Presentation aids should aid you in making a point. So oftentimes I have students that get all the way through their presentation and knowing that visual aids are a grade, and they go, oh, I forgot to show you this. And then they're clicking through their slideshow or their PowerPoint or showing pictures or things after the fact. So that goes back to practicing with your visual aids and making sure that you are incorporating them into the delivery as they apply, and they're not an afterthought. So keeping all of that in mind, being creative with your visual aids, seeing how they can fit with your message and really enhance what you're trying to say and how you're trying to reach your audience. All right, I will see you next time.